too many golden retrievers are gone at 9, 10, 11 before they ever look old. I did not get this from a blog. Someone who has raised over 200 golden retriever litters over 20 years showed me the pattern she had been seeing, and then I went looking for the studies. The part that bothered me most was how much of a golden's lifespan can be shaped before the food bowl, before the supplements, before the first walk, and before the puppy ever comes home. I needed 3 answers in a clean order. Whether the decline people talk about is real, why cancer became such a huge part of the golden retriever story, and which owner choices still matter with dogs like Nessie. If this stops at the title, a lot of owners keep trusting registration papers, championship names, and a dog that looks only a little heavy. And those are exactly the kinds of false signals that cost healthy years quietly. The first thing I needed to settle was whether people were just remembering the past more kindly than it was. Someone who has raised over 200 litters told me the families that aged well never looked random in her records because she stayed in touch with puppy homes, heard the same names again years later, and watched certain lines keep producing dogs that held up, while other lines kept circling back to the same early losses. When I checked the research, the exact averages moved around by country and dataset, which matters because broad dog databases do not all count the same populations the same way. But the pattern underneath was still hard to ignore. Older breed surveys often placed Goldens around the low teens. Newer datasets often land closer to the 10 to 12 range. And the important point is not the exact average to one decimal place, but how many Goldens are dying from cancer before they ever look truly old. Better diagnosis can change labels, but it does not explain why the same cancer conversations kept showing up in the same Golden families. The number that changed how I look at Nessie is this. Roughly 1 in 2 golden retrievers will develop cancer in their lifetime, and in some U.S. populations, the burden looks even worse. That number is not one vague disease. It is hemangiosarcoma, it is lymphoma, it is osteosarcoma, it is mast cell tumors. It is a breed carrying a level of cancer risk that owners tend to underestimate because Goldens still look so happy, social, and sturdy, right up until they don't. Someone who has raised over 200 litters told me the same cancer conversations kept repeating across parents, siblings, and littermates. And that is the point where bad luck stops feeling like a complete explanation. When the same cancers repeat across parents, siblings, and littermates, that stops looking like luck and starts looking like inheritance. I was standing in the kitchen with my phone in one hand. Nessie was lying by the back door with her chin on the floorboards, and I looked at the statistic, and then at her, and then back at the statistic. My stomach dropped. I looked at Nessie, then back at the chart. The breed stopped being a cheerful stereotype in my head. It became a body carrying real odds. But a cancer-heavy breed still does not explain why some golden lines seem to hold up a lot better than others. One detail killed my better diagnosis theory. This is not equally true across all golden retriever populations or all family lines. When researchers compare populations, and when someone who has raised over 200 litters compares the family records she has watched unfold over years, the pattern does not come back flat. Some golden populations have shown better longevity. Some lines have lower visible cancer concentration. This is not a simple Europe good, America bad story, and it is not proof that any one region solved the breed, but it does prove something that matters a lot. Earlier death is not inevitable golden retriever fate in exactly the same way everywhere. 2 golden puppies can look identical at 8 weeks and still come from family histories with very different odds. And that means where your golden comes from matters more than most owners are ever told. But if some Goldens are clearly aging better than others, something upstream in the breed got concentrated. This is the part I underestimated. A breed can stay gorgeous and lovable while getting genetically tighter and riskier underneath. Because purebred dogs come from closed gene pools. Closed gene pools limit diversity, and once a health risk spreads widely enough inside a popular breed, removing it cleanly gets much harder than owners assume. A few heavily used dogs can shape a breed far more than people realize. That is the popular-sire effect. One handsome male with a great head, strong movement, a sweet temperament, and a big show or field reputation can show up again and again in pedigrees. And if he carries hidden risk, that risk does not stay hidden for long once enough descendants are born. Visible traits get rewarded fast. Longevity gets measured late. Cancer often shows up after breeding decisions have already been repeated for years. Health testing still matters. Hips matter, elbows matter, eyes matter, hearts matter. None of that is fake. None of that should be dismissed. But health testing does not automatically capture lifetime cancer burden or family longevity, and that is where a lot of owners get misled by clean paperwork. Someone who has raised over 200 litters told me the breeders who care most do not stop at certificates. They ask how old the grandparents lived. They track siblings. They track half-siblings. They track aunts and uncles. They ask what each dog died from. Papers tell you identity. They do not give prognosis. But blaming breeding alone lets owners off too easily, because once that risk is already in the dog, everyday choices decide how much margin is left. The biggest lever most owners still control is body condition. In long-term retriever feeding studies, the lean dogs lived materially longer and developed chronic disease later. And that matters here because extra body fat is not a cosmetic issue in a breed that may already be carrying less health margin to begin with. A golden that stays a little too heavy spends every day with more inflammatory load, more stress on joints, more metabolic strain, and less reserve when age or disease finally starts to press. That is why a little chunky bothers me a lot more now than it used to. In a breed this cancer-prone, cute weight gain is not neutral. It is borrowed margin. Growth and joint management matter too, because Goldens are large, fast-growing dogs, and the way they grow early can shape pain, movement, and body condition for years after puppyhood. Hard repetitive impact before the body is ready, chronic overfeeding during growth, and sloppy conditioning all stack stress where this breed already has orthopedic vulnerability. The same goes for spay and neuter timing, which should not be treated like dogma or internet tribe membership. Sex matters, age matters, line context matters. The evidence is mixed enough that one-size-fits-all advice misses the point. And the point is reducing unnecessary trade-offs in a dog that may already have inherited a rougher starting hand. That changed how I handle Nessie day to day. In the mudroom, with rain drying on her coat and the scale pushed against the wall, I stopped looking for a flattering shape and started using my hands. I run my fingers over her ribs, I look for a visible waist, I check whether she is carrying extra over her hips. A little softness stopped sounding harmless. It started sounding expensive. The hardest part for me to accept was this. By the time Nessie came home, a huge part of her lifespan story was already written. That sentence sounds heavy because it is heavy. It means this is not mostly a food story. It is not mostly a supplement story. It is not mostly a love your dog harder story. A huge part was written before she met me. That does not make owners powerless. It makes priorities clearer. You cannot rewrite your dog's pedigree, but you can stop taking margin away from a body that may already have less of it. Registration records tell you who a Golden's parents were. They do not tell you how long that family lived. Open a note on your phone called My Dog's Longevity Baseline and write down 4 things right now. Today's weight, whether you can easily feel the ribs, age at spay or neuter if applicable, and the age and cause of death for every relative you can verify. If your dog is a rescue and the family line is blank, Write unknown instead of skipping it. Any blank space in that note becomes your next question, not something you ignore. For Nessie, that note holds her current weight, her body condition, the family history I have, the age she was altered, and the patterns I would want a vet to know fast if anything changes. It also reminds me what I stopped overvaluing: vague reassurance that a puppy looked healthy, breeder pitches built around titles alone, and marketing language that makes owners feel safe without telling them a single thing about how long that family lived. This topic is not a reason to panic, it is a reason to get precise. Goldens are still one of the best dogs in the world to live with. That is part of why this hurts. People love them so much that they stop looking hard at what the breed has been carrying underneath. Once I understood that a Golden's lifespan can be shaped long before the puppy goes home, I stopped trusting polished breeder websites and started looking for the signals that separate careful breeding from beautiful salesmanship. There are 7 questions that expose that difference fast, and one of them almost no bad breeder can answer cleanly. That video gives you the exact list and the red flag answers before you ever send a deposit. Next, I'm going to show you the pedigree patterns the breeder I work with checks before litter is even born, because they reveal which risks most owners never know to look for. Share your Golden's age and, if you know it, whether cancer showed up on the mom side, the dad side, or both. Subscribe for the Golden advice you only get when a lifelong owner can compare notes with a breeder who has raised 200+ litters and watched the long game play out.